The noose is tightening on some people. Another noose is loosening on other people. And then there's a question looming, which all of us are going to have to answer. And that is that whether or not government of the people, by the people, and for the people, under God, with justice and liberty, whether or not that government shall continue, at least in America. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Welcome to the program, friend. When President Lincoln made his speech at Gettysburg during the ceremonies involving the burial of literally tens of thousands of men, he closed his 80-second speech, 10 sentences long, with these words. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. A new birth of freedom under God. Before we began filming, I was pondering the fact that freedom or liberty and justice are joined at the hip. They are inseparable. We cannot have freedom without justice. We will never find or apply justice without freedom. And as President Lincoln made the phrase, government of the people, by the people, for the people, he was clear that it was under God. It's not as we get to define it. The new birth of freedom and its conjoined twin, justice, that new birth of freedom was under God. And I would contend, as we watch these impeachment proceedings, and the House of Representatives is even now drafting the final 2 articles of impeachment, as we look at this impeachment narrative, and then over here in another arena, we see the Horowitz report, the IG report, the Inspector General, who outlined 17 places in the pursuit of President Trump in what is called Operation Crossfire Hurricane, the Spygate, the stuff involving the Steele dossier, the surveillance community inside the FBI and the CIA spying on President Trump and his team. We have these 2 separate narratives going on. One is a freak show, and one is the real show. But the overarching issue is whether or not this nation will survive with freedom and justice, with true representative government, government of the people, by the people, and for the people, under God. President Lincoln made that speech in the middle of a hot civil war. Hot being the phrase means that there's guns going off. A Cold War, such as we had with Russia, the phrase a Cold War means that shots are not being fired. America right now is in the middle of a cold civil war. So don't believe anybody who says to you, the American people want, because it's not true. They could say, a large portion of the American people want, or my followers want. But when someone stands up and says, people want freedom of choice, dead babies, they're lying. Some people do, but there's a large group of us who want babies protected. When someone stands up and says, the American people want a free college education, socialism. I don't want to put a gun to my neighbor's head and force him to pay for my children's education. So the statements are a lie. When someone says, the American people want to get to the bottom of what happened with this FISA abuse against President Trump, there's a lot of Americans who don't want to get to the bottom of it. They just want Trump out of office. They don't care if laws were broken. By definition, we are in, at very least, an ideological and a cultural and a political and a philosophical civil war, and there will only be one winner. And the levers of government, the powers of government, are key to this whole fight. I would be tempted to say that they were central, but central would be God himself. Foundational would be God himself. But at the end of the day, the reason that this is so important to you and to me is because the levers of power have been, for the most part, in the hands of corrupt, often godless people who have contempt for the laws of God, who spurn, openly reject the laws of God. And if they succeed in getting all branches of government in their hands, then freedom under God and government of the people, by the people, for the people, under God, will perish in the earth, or at least in America. When we come back, we're going to play a clip from William Barr, the Attorney General. We're going to play a clip from Ted Cruz. And we're going to talk with you about the nooses. One tightening, one loosening. Don't go away. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. Welcome back, friend. Most of us do not have the time, or we are not willing to invest the time to watch the impeachment proceedings. There have been many events in American history where we were glued to the television. This, for most Americans, it's not one of them. And it's interesting because when the impeachment proceedings began, there was a very large viewership. And that viewership has cratered to the point where there's almost no one watching. And there's a reason. I was listening to one stat the other day. CNN averages about 500,000 viewers at any given moment. Fox averages about 4 million. MSNBC averages about 700,000. Now, those are the three major news cable networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, the motherships, if you will, of broadcasting. They began by carrying these hearings live, and then they bailed out because they have been so boring, so non-compelling. Now, this morning, there was some real fireworks because the House Judiciary Committee is going forward with the 2 articles of impeachment. They're marking them up as I record this program, basically saying that President Trump abused power and that he refused to cooperate with Congress, neither of which, in legal terms, are impeachable offenses. So it's almost been hysterical to watch from the beginning of the Trump presidency, where it was, collusion with Russia, meddling in an election that proved to be complete bunk. And then it was a quid pro quo, and then they threw that out. And then it was bribery, and then they threw that out. Then it was extortion, and then they threw that out. And now it's abuse of power, kind of undefined, and refusing to cooperate with Congress. We don't think he stole that horse, but we damn well know he fought to keep us from hanging him for it. That's what we've got going on. President Trump is invoking executive privilege, which has been invoked by every president in my lifetime. And with the separation of powers in our government, the Supreme Court has ruled on many occasions that the president has the right to, as the chief executive of the executive branch, he has the right to withhold certain information. And he's doing it. All right, this is a witch hunt and he's not participating. So they're impeaching him for it. Now, this is all a part of the loosening noose of all of the witnesses that the Democrats have paraded before the American public. Only one had direct evidence as to whether or not the president tried to extort or bribe or do a quid pro quo. And that one witness said, no, the president told me specifically, there is no quid pro quo. Tell him to do the right thing, but just, there's no quid pro quo. I don't want anything from us. I don't want anything from them. That's the only eyewitness, ear witness that testified for the Democrats. Then they brought in these political hacks, these character assassins, the so-called elite, university, constitutional scholars. Like that one woman who said that she was a lesbian. She had a phrase for herself, a lesbian hack or something, or bisexual hack. And she was on Hillary Clinton's short list to be a Supreme Court nominee. She was on Hillary's short list. She's one of the people that they brought. So that shows a level of desperation. And now, before the Judiciary Committee, run by Nader, they're not even bringing on witnesses. It's a joke. It's a joke. This is all a part of the loosening noose. The House may vote with a majority to impeach President Trump. The Senate, not going to happen. We'll come back to that in the coming days because this could be a time bomb for the Democrats on the Senate side. But there is a tightening noose. The tightening noose is around the intelligence community. And that noose is found inside of the IG report, the Horowitz report, concerning Operation Crossfire. The operation that was set up under President Obama, with President Obama's knowledge, to spy on candidate Trump and then to undermine the presidency of President-elect and President Trump. That noose is tightening. What the press is not covering is that there are criminal referrals in the IG report to the Attorney General. Criminal referrals. That means, so you understand, Horowitz, the Inspector General, does not have the ability to convene a grand jury. He doesn't have the ability to bring charges. He can make criminal referrals. He can say, this looks to us like a crime was committed. We suggest you look into it. We refer this to you for criminal prosecution. There's a noose tightening. I don't know where it's going to end, but as we will see when we come back, Attorney General Barr has weighed in. And the attorney for the federal government for the Southern District, or actually the Connecticut area, Durham, he and Barr have both come out since the release of this report and said, in so many words, there's way more that we know that is in this than is in this report, and we don't agree with the conclusion that there was no political bias. That's what most of the press has been reporting, that there was no political bias in Operation Crossfire. I'm sorry, this is genuine laughter. I'm not making this laughter up. It's so funny. It just shows that Horowitz is a part of the swamp. He's got one part of him that's got integrity. He's got another part that doesn't want to be accosted at cocktail parties. I'll be right back. We'll play a couple of clips when we return. Don't go away.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. Its teachings are good and peaceful. And those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah.
We have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace.
Islam is a religion of peace. They are not Muslims, they are monsters.
We've been told that Muslim terrorists have hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam. But Islamic art and literature tell a very different story. To know the truth, we only have to study the narrative of the founder of Islam, Mohammed, in his own words. Welcome back, friend. I want to play these two clips for you back to back from Ted Cruz and from Attorney General Barr. In fact, let's start with Attorney General Barr. Here we go.
These omissions were not satisfactorily explained. And I think that leaves open the possibility to infer bad faith. I think our nation was turned on its head for 3 years. I think based on a completely bogus narrative that was largely fanned and hyped by an irresponsible press. And I think that there were gross abuses of FISA and inexplicable behavior that is intolerable in the FBI. It was clearly spied upon. I mean, that's what electronic surveillance is. I think wiring people up to go in and talk to people and make recordings of their conversations is spying.
All right. So we see that there was deceit. We see that there was spying, not just irregularities. Some stuff here that's got to be answered for. Now, here's the clip from Ted Cruz.
In any ordinary circumstance, if a private citizen did this, fabricated evidence, and by the way, what he inserted was not just slightly wrong, it was 180 degrees opposite what the evidence said. So the intelligence agency said this guy is a source, and he inserted this guy is not a source. If a private citizen did that in any law enforcement investigation, if they fabricated evidence and reversed what it said, in your experience, would that private citizen be prosecuted for fabricating evidence, be prosecuted for obstruction of justice, be prosecuted for perjury?
They certainly would be considered for that if there was an intentional effort to deceive the court. On this one, I'm going to defer because, as we noted here in the sentence you indicated, we referred that over to the Attorney General and the FBI Director for handling.
All right, so we see that Horowitz says, yes, a criminal referral was made. Put these two things together, would you? Horowitz is saying, we've made a criminal referral for a lot of these 17 abuses of power, irregularities, people lying, people changing emails. Literally, there was a guy who they had spying going on, Carter Page. He was a spy. He was a spy for the U.S. government against the Russians. He was a good guy. And they lied to the FISA court and said, no, he's not a spy. He's not an asset. He doesn't work for us. So that they could spy on him to try and get to Trump. Someone is going to get prosecuted for this. Someone's going to do jail time. This man was an asset for the American government. He risked his life for America. He was a good man. He is a good man. And somebody with so much political bias that they wanted to take down President Trump lied to the courts. So we see with Barr, there was definitely spying. There was definitely abuse of the FISA court. We see with the Ted Cruz question that a normal person would be prosecuted, would be indicted for lying to a court to get to someone, to use the mechanisms of power. That's what we've got coming, friends. There's a tightening noose right now. How far will Attorney General Barr go? I don't know. How far will Durham go? I don't know. They're going to have every single dot and tittle, every jot and tittle. They're going to have such an airtight case that it's unimpeachable. So whoever they bring an indictment against, you can bet that they're going to start to roll. They're not going to go to trial. They're going to flip. They're going to become state's evidence. The only question is, how far will this go up? How many indictments will happen? When will it happen? And whether or not Attorney General Barr and Durham have the guts to see this through, because the political fallout is going to be crazy. This morning, a huge article came out saying, who needs Rudy Giuliani for the president? Attorney General Barr is his personal attorney. He's his hatchet man. So now they've begun the assassination of the character of Bill Barr. They have to. But the noose is going to tighten, people. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about those levers of power and what they mean to you, to me, and for our children and grandchildren. Please don't go away. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Mohammed and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life. Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, What Would Mohammed Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Mohammed and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced. Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. Almighty God in His wisdom gave us 4 governments under Him. He's the great King of the universe, the King of kings, the sovereign Lord, but He gave us family government, church government, self-government, and civil government. Those are the 4 governments under God. Sometimes there's overlap, but in those 4 governments, most of the Christian community loves to the church government. We love family, trying to build our families. Self-government, we're talking about prayer, Bible study, trying to live a holy life. The one that is the odd man out, the one that is a bit of a nuisance for some of us, is civil government. But we enjoy the luxury of saying, I don't really care about that, because our current civil government, at least the one that's been here for 250 years or so, that civil government was brought to us at great sacrifice by good men and women who are committed to bringing government under God. If you read the Declaration of Independence, you read the Constitution, you understand that the framers of our republic understood that God and His laws were the foundation of law and order. Civil government, they knew, was the brutal taskmaster. If you look at the history of civil government, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, communist China, the Soviet Union, take your pick, look at the Magna Carta. Civil government has the power to crush these other 3, to crush church government, to decimate the family, to make slaves of individuals so that church government and self-government and family government mean nothing. This one government, because it has been granted the sword, not an exclusive use of the sword, but it has been granted the sword by God, Romans chapter 13, read it. This is the one that can wreak the most havoc. And it's the one that is wreaking the most havoc. And we as Christian men and women must be committed to restoring civil government to justice and righteousness and liberty under God. And if we don't, then this one branch of the four governments that God established, it's going to get so out of control that it crushes self-government and family government and church government, and we will have no one to blame but ourselves because of our neglect. Let's not let that happen.